Hey there friends, I'm Popeye. We got some more Umineko Chapter 3 for you today. Last time we saw the adults after Maria gives them the letter, and they basically have this idea that there is a 19th person that exists on the island who may or may not have been our grandfather's secret lover and or benefactor. But they come to the conclusion that this person has already found the gold, has already solved the epitaph, and basically their letter is a way of saying like, hey, I've already solved it, I've already found this gold, so I'm already the winner here, but I will sell the headship to you for a fraction of that gold. Because why would I just give that gold over to you, assuming I've already found it? So that's the assumption that they come up with. Meanwhile, Battler meets with Beatrice's new piece of furniture, the butler from Hell, and the two of them are discussing Battler's plan of attack, or defense in this case. And Battler's going to go with there's a 19th person on the island, and you'll have to disprove that, and then he'll say, oh, well, what if there's another person, and so on and so forth. And basically, the devil's proof that you need to show me that you need to prove to me that all these people that you can't really prove exist. And they have a defense, and I can't remember exactly. It's named after someone, and it's something Raven. It's the guy's name and then Raven. And basically what the counter proposal to this is that if you say all birds that are ravens are white, if I can prove that all other birds are black, then ravens must be white. So the defense here is that if Beatrice can prove that none of the 18 could do it, then, or if she could prove that any of the 18 could do it, then it has to be one of the 18. I'm sure they'll give us another summary here, because I think we're kind of in the middle of it. But let's dive right in. I think I kind of messed up on the Raven explanation, so hopefully they explain it better than I do. It has been a while since I last recorded. Oh yes, and we have the return of Words in Red. So a reminder, if this has been a while since you've seen this, Words in Red are words that we are to take at face value as being true, because otherwise it's just, a yes, no. So anything that Beatrice says in red is the truth, assuming that she's playing this game fairly, which I feel like she has to be. I don't think she gains any, because she's here for the amusement. She's here for the love of the game, in my opinion. So if she were to be cheating at this game, I don't think that would be very fun for her. Actually, can I scroll back and whoever's Raven, Hempel's Raven. Oh yeah. So if there's supposed to be 19 people, if Beatrice can prove that a 19th person on the island couldn't have done it, say for example she can prove that you needed a master key to enter this, and all the master keys are in possession of the 18 people, she no longer has to prove anything. She's proven one of the 18 people had to open this door. Maybe the 19th person did something kind of afterwards, but one of the 18 people was in on it. She doesn't have to prove who it was, just that one of the 18 did it.
言っとくが、そいつは自爆だぜ。その時点で、お前は魔女説を自ら捨てたも同然。まさに盗領だ。
That's right. The red isn't always necessarily to Beato's advantage. On the contrary, if she used it the wrong way, it's dangerous enough that she could bring about her own death. If she used it carelessly and said something which ended up denying herself, that would be exactly the same thing as self-destructing.
確かに俺にとっても、18人の中に犯人がいると赤で言われることは、受け入れたくない悲しい事実さ。たとえ誰が犯人であっても、俺はきっと辛い気持ちになるだろうぜ。だが、それはそれ以前に、人間が犯人だとお前が赤で語ることは、お前の盗領宣言にも等しい。お前が、俺と差し違えても相打ちにしたいってんなら、それも面白い一手だろうぜ。だが、この勝負は俺の勝ちで終わる。
Beatrice's red was truly her secret weapon, her treasured blade. The thing she spoke in red would become solidified as the truth, and no amount of evidence or counter-arguments could change them. They had cut me down to size many times now, rending in two any supports my heart had to lean on. However, if she used it carelessly, then I could also find a little information about the truth. In the last game, especially during the chapel's locked room trick, I had taken advantage of that. And it once closed her in almost completely, but she was also pretty sly. She had learned from experience, and since then had started using discretion in the timing of the red. This feeling of tension was almost literally like a battle of real swords. This was a battle of high intelligence. I don't know if you're qualified then, battler. No, not of intelligence. It really was twisted logic. This was the world's craziest and worst battle of twisted logic. Okay, you stand a bit of a better chance there.
今度はお前の手番だぜ。そうさ。お前のヘンペルのカラスを使うには、まず、18人以外に何人の人間がいるのかを赤で確定させる必要がある。その上で、それらの人間について、さらに赤で犯人でないことを宣言したならば、なるほど。こいつは俺にとって致命傷になるだろうぜ。
あれほど怯えていた赤を、もはや微塵も怯えぬとはな。
Okay, so Battler is saying there's a few options here. Beatrice can say in red, none of the 18, and we've redefined the 18 as Battler and his family and the servants, and she's listed them all out. So I won't get into that. So he's saying she could immediately say in red, one of them killed. She could say Maria killed everyone in red, and then we would have to take that as truth, but that means she loses because that's proof that a witch didn't do it. And now what Battler is saying is, okay, to use your Hempel's Raven to prove that no one on your side did it, none of these extra humans did it, you have to, one, be able to say in red how many humans that there are. So if there's 20 who are on this island, then we know there's 2 extra. And then she also has to say in red that she also has to prove and say in red that those 2 people who we don't know didn't do it.
たくましいやつよ。
抜いてみろよ。殿下の宝刀。バッサリ決まって、今度こそ俺を屈服できるかもしれねえぜ。
面白い。こうでなくてはな。
Agitate her, provoke her, drive her into a corner to make her speak in red. Of course, the red has always cut through my only threads of hope, but don't be afraid of that. On this island, overcome with falsehoods and illusions, the only thing I can trust is the information that she speaks in red. It is my only way across the chasm of hell. Just a single tightrope. So he's trying to provoke her into saying more things in red so that he can learn more information. Her merciless blood-red blade is the only way I can survive. This isn't just walking on a tightrope, it's literally like walking the edge of a blade. Of course I'm afraid. In terms of her contrapositive, my victory condition, the denial of the witch meant that the culprit was a human. But I didn't want to search for the culprit amid the 18. Therefore, I held on to a weak point since I had to deny the witch and the 18 at the same time. Since I had been unable to understand that last time, that was where she hit me, leaving me tattered and defeated. But that's alright. Let her hit me. Let her attack. No problem. Someone said it once in an old sword fighting movie, that a good fortress has one and only one intentionally weak point. The enemy would gather there. They would be lured there. And that would be where the actual battle took place. As long as I understood my weak points, as long as she wants to attack those weak points, it's as if I've induced her to attack there. Carefully judge the distance from your enemy and retreat step by step. Make them draw their sword first. The more she recklessly flourishes that red, the more chances I'll have to strike back. Don't be afraid of the red. Keep the pressure on so that she is forced to refute with the red. No matter how oppressively she speaks in red. Yes, that red itself is the same as fresh blood spurting from her wounds.
さあ、どうしたよ。まずはこの島に合計で何人いるのか。赤で語ってもらおうじゃねえか。さもないと、お前のカラスは俺に切り込めないぜ。
破れかぶれが、こうもやりにくいとは。捨て身というやつは、いつの時代も侮れんな。やはり金蔵の孫か。追い詰められれば追い詰められるほどに、不敵。
Ronov cleared his
到
throat.
着しましたね。せっかくの紅茶も冷めてしまいますよ、お嬢様。
Ronov, who was supposed to be her ally, roguishly rushed her next move. Beato smiled back, probably intending to demonstrate that she was still relaxed, but she couldn't hide the sweat building up on her forehead. By now she'd completely lost that relaxedness which had allowed her to turn her nose up at her worthless opponent. Of course, she probably wasn't really cornered by something like this, she was just being cautious. Until now, I'd been inexperienced. I didn't have a good grasp on how to fight. I was underpowered as an opponent. However, now that we'd reached the third game, she realized I was starting to become skilled. And she'd grown more cautious, thinking every move over carefully. Sure, that's fine, Beatrice. And sorry to have kept you waiting. Are you happy now?
面白くなってきたぜ。
バトラー。
拉致が開かねえな。なら、ズバッと気持ちよく、いつものやつで行こうじゃねえか。
ほう。いつものやつとな。ならば頼もうではないか。あれを聞かぬと。やはり始まった気がせぬわ。
The first move was mine.
行くぜ、ベアト。副将要求。この島には18人しかいない。こいつを赤で言われちまったら、俺は18人の誰かを疑わざるを得ない。19人目の仕業にはもうできず、八方塞
Just
がり。
getting right to the heart of the matter. I kind of applaud him for that. We're not beating around the bush.
俺は18人の中に犯人が絶対にいないと信じてる。あんな残酷な殺人を18人の誰にも起こせるものか。繰り返すぞ。副将要求。この島には18人しかいない。
拒否する。理由は明かさない。
I'd avoided what would have been the worst red for me. If she'd repeated that, I would have been faced with those two worst choices of accepting the witch or suspecting one of the 18. Last time all over again. Beato had not proclaimed my ultimate and greatest weakness in red. She declined to repeat it, even though there was no reason why she shouldn't have struck, even though it was a weakness she should have been drooling at. She hadn't sliced me up with red by using that move, which should have been as good as forking a rook in the king. This was a big sign of my advantage. That's right. The culprit isn't one of the 18 people. I won't doubt anyone. Since the culprit isn't a witch either, it means that a 19th person exists on this island. That's you. The person who is grandfather's mistress of 30 years, has been living secretly in a hidden mansion in the forest for a long, long time. The human Beatrice.
そうさ。お前は魔女なんかじゃない。この島に何十年も隠れ住んできた。
1000年を経た無限の魔女のわらわをただの人間呼ばわりしたか。
While Beatrice continued to laugh unpleasantly, gloating, or maybe spiteful.
いいか、続けるぜ。続けて復讐要求。この島には19人以上がいる。
Beatrice fell silent once again, feeling that confirming the number of humans on the island might possibly stand to give her some large disadvantage, probably making her extremely cautious. The red had already become a foothold for my counterattack. With that in mind, the red had become a risk for the witch. But if she couldn't repeat this, her Hempel's Raven wouldn't work. In order to break my Devil's Proof, first the existence of a number of people outside the 18 needed to be confirmed in red. That's right. She couldn't break the existence of a 19th person unless she used red. I'd closed Beato in, giving her no choice but to speak in red. There really was a way to fight in this witch's game.
拒否してもいいんだぜ。お前が赤で言えないなら、この島の合計人数は18プラス X ってことになる。この X は初手で許すには相当でかい大駒だぜ。何しろ以後18人の誰にも不可能だったという根拠のトリックは全て18人以外の人間 X で説明可能になる。全員アリバイ系の密室を全て打ち破れる大駒だ。
It was just like a bishop in chess, which can cut a thin line through enemy forces as long as there's a slight gap. Only exerts an effect over squares of the same color, but has a great ability to control the board. Looked like Beato also well understood her current plight. She couldn't let such an important piece go, especially this close to the beginning of the game. She pulled out her red treasured sword. It wouldn't be that difficult to save that piece. But Beato was completely aware that I was expecting it. She was afraid that a careless red truth might end up strangling her own neck. Because in the first place, a witch was something which should be denied in red. Believe, don't doubt. Witches don't exist. Something like that can't exist in this world. They can only exist in the cracks in reality. They are a fragile existence, curled up in these cracks, frantically trying to protect themselves from the brutal winds of truth. And they can only barely exist like a mirage by surviving on falsehoods and fantasy. In other words, the red, which only witches can use, the very reality by which they risk denying themselves. The more they brandish their red words, the more they begin to lose, bit by bit, that crack in reality inside which they can endure. That is why they don't want, through the red, to carelessly lose that crack in reality, which is based on fuzzy information, or in other words, fantasy. But they understand that they would be gradually cornering themselves. Of course she would never admit it, because if she did, it would be the same as admitting that she is something that can't exist in this world, like an imaginary number. Don't be afraid, stay strong. She knows this deep down and better than anyone, that her red treasured sword can't easily be used with considerable resolve.
どうしたよ。繰り返すぜ。副将要系。この島には19人以上がいる。
拒否する。
At the end of a long, long time spent deliberating, letting a single deep breath escape, she quietly proclaimed her refusal. I had thought that she'd use it. We had to refuse to speak in red, even though it would cost her victory in the opening part of
拒
the
否した。
game.
ということは今後、俺は18人以外の架空人物 X を何人でも使い放題ってことになるぜ。
好きにするがよ。わらわはそなたの副将を拒否し、今はそれで十分である。拒否の理由は、いや、今はまだ明かさない。いずれすぐにわかる。
もったいぶりやがってよ。
あえて使わぬ赤もまた赤らしい使い方。そなたは赤き宝刀と呼んだ。愉快な例えだ。わらわも使う。宝刀は抜かぬうちが離
It's
れ。
interesting that now that Beatrice is cornered, I find her voice is quite low compared to how she normally speaks when she's very, like proud and mocking us and all that.
むしろ抜かぬことによって醸せる畏怖というものもある。
そうだな。俺はお前がいつ赤でひっくり返してくるか常に念頭に置いて戦わなければならない。こいつはえれえプレッシャーだ。それに副将を拒否される方が辛い場合もある。何しろ俺の読みが正しいから拒否できないのか、ミスリードにはまって泳がされてるのか区別がつかないからな。そういう意味ではなるほど抜かずの宝刀ってわけだ。
なあ、同じ突き落とすか少しでも高いところに行かせてからに限る。まだ始まったばかり。まだまだ。この勝負は今はわらわがリザインする。淡き勝利に今はよい。今はね。
Battler takes the opening. Which I presume means we're now going back to real life. That bitter comment did in fact appear to have marked the end of this game's opening battle. Even so, I couldn't relax my guard at all. I was unable to relax my feeling of tension until I was greeted by the sound of Ronov's applause.
お見事です、バトラ様。まずは序盤はバトラ様有利の展開でスタートというところでしょうか。
さあな、この駒が俺の手でもぎ取ったものなのか、取るよう誘導されたものかはまだわからねえな。どうせお前のことだ。俺が罠にはまり始めてるのを知ってて白々しく拍手をしてるんだろ。
まさか。序盤とはいえ、お嬢様より一本を奪った手腕を純粋に祝福いたしております。何しろお嬢様はすぐ増長するお方。たまにはこのような刺激も良い薬かと思いますよ。
お前んとこの執事、ほんと口悪いな。
であろう？たまにわらわでもカチンとくるぞ。
それは、大変に失礼いたしました。さあさあ、お嬢様にバトラ様、紅茶のおかわりはいかがですかな？まだゲームは始まったばかりでございます。ゲームを彩るお茶とお菓子は、どうか、この私めにお任せを。どうぞお気兼ねなく、ゲームをお進めになってください。
そうさせてもらう。先を進めるぜ。これからが本番だ。
よかろう。時計を進めようではないか。どの上、紅茶を頼む。
かしこまりました。クッキーはい
らぬ。ベルゼブブにやれば喜ぼう。 しばし沈黙せよ。
While listening to the sound of the demon butler pouring tea, the witch closed her eyes slightly and fell into silence. For some time she was deeply lost in thought, but eventually a roguish glint came into her eyes.
よかろう。わらわがどうして初手にて赤で語るのを拒否したのか。今よりは
何？上等じゃねえかよ。お手並み拝見と行くぜ。
やはり見逃すには惜しい大駒よ。拙速かもしれぬが動かせてもらおう。赤は使わぬ。今よりそれをわらわに代わってローザが説明する。聞くがよ。
So she won't use red, but she'll use the other keywords to explain. Probably because Battler won't doubt them. Even if they are wrong. This could be a deception. She could be misleading.
もちろん私も同意よ。ローザもそうでしょ？ローザ？
ごめんなさい。私も同じよ。同意するわ。
どうしたんや？あんたさっきからずいぶんおとなしいな。体調でも悪いんとちゃうか？
From the beginning, Rose had never been one to willingly cut in on the siblings' fights. Even so, she seemed unmotivated, and said almost nothing at all during this night's conference. The whole time she'd been hanging her head and appeared to be thinking of something
あん
else.
たさっきからぼんやりしてるわよ。そんなので遺産が守れると思ってるの？あんたも一児の母なんだから、もっとしっかりなさいよ。
ごめんなさい。
朝がだいぶ早かったんじゃないかね。体調が悪いなら無理をしない方がいいだろう。
客室にベッドの用意がありますよ。お休みになってはいかがですか？ご案内しますよ。
いえ、大丈夫です。ありがとう。
どうしたんだ？何か心配事でもあるのか？
いえ。
そう？さっきからずっと心ここにあらずという感じよ。そしてそれは今私たちがしている議題と何か関係があるんじゃないかしら。
At these words, everyone stared at Rosa together. As if in response, Rosa's shoulders quivered. Apparently, Kiria's guess hadn't been wrong. Nor did Rosa deny it. She swallowed whatever it was she'd been about to say and went silent again. By now, even the other siblings were also beginning to realize that something about her demeanor was different from usual.
どうしたんだ？さっきからおかしいぞ。何か思うことでもあるのか？
わしら全員で団結しようって誓い合ったばかりやないか。一人で悩むなんて水臭い話やで。話したってな。
ローザ、話しなさい。
Pressed by the men one after the other, Rosa made up her mind and nervously began to open up. It was almost as though she was trying to confess to some modest prank which had inadvertently brought about a serious situation. Such was the atmosphere in the room.
いえ。ベアトリーチェっていうお父様の愛人って本当に生きてるのかしらって思って。
はぁ？そりゃ生きてるに決まってるでしょう。こうして手紙を送ってくるぐらいだもの。
元気かどうかは別の問題だろうけどな。肖像画の美女も。今じゃきっといいお年だろうぜ。
元気やと思うで。金のことで悪知恵働く奴は決まっていくつになっても元気や。案外悪巧みは最高の回春剤かもしらへんで。
生きてるはずないの。
今なんて？
ベアトリーチェは死んでるのよ。私が殺した。
なんだって？
どういうことよ、ローザ！
でも、私が殺したわけじゃ。でも、私があんなところに連れ出したから、やっぱり私が殺したのよ。あれは夢だと思い込もうとしたのよ。でも、やっぱりあれは夢じゃなかったのよ。だからこれは、ベアトリチェの亡霊からの手紙なのよ。
Or just someone pretending to be Beatrice is the much more logical explanation. It was so sudden that everyone was lost for words. Rosa kept on talking, unable to stop, holding her head as her hair flew all about.
どうか落ち着いて、ローザさん。
わしには何がないやらさっぱりや。もう死んどる？どういう意味なんや。
二つの意味があると思うわ。まず一つ目は、そしてもう一つは、私たちの想像が正しかったことを。
ということで、ローザはベアトリーチェに会ったことがあるというのか。
そんな話、ローザの口からは一度も聞いたことがないわ。ローザ、いつよ。あなたは一体いつベアトリーチェに会ったのよ。
昔よ。ずっと昔よ。まだこの島に引っ越してきたばかりで、私は幼かった。私は悪くないの。私が殺したわけじゃ。
落ち着け。誰もお前を責めちゃいねえぜ。まずは水でも飲め。夏希さん、水差しを頼む。
はい、どうぞ、ローザさん。どうか落ち着いて。
Until Rose was able to regain her calm amidst her ragged breathing, no one was able to speak a word. So the way she's talking, it seems like she inadvertently brought around the death of Beatrice. And are we getting a flashback now? This is a building I don't think we've seen except in Beatrice's flashback when she was learning magic.
ベアトリーチ、先ほどから呼んでおる。聞こえなんだか？
そうであったか。すまぬ。ぼんやり考え事をしていた。
Beatrice sounds younger, although everyone's sprites appear to be the same age.
良い天気だな。なるほど。陽気に心を奪われるのもわかるというもの。紅茶はここで飲むか？
わらわは何者なのか。
今紅茶を持ってくる。しばし待て。
紅茶は良い。わらわの話に付き合え。
よっ。
Kinzo had used the excuse of going to bring some black tea to try and interrupt the conversation for the time being, but his attempt had been very transparent. I sat in the garden chair and beckoned Kinzo to do the same. Kinzo sat down heavily, exaggerating his age. For a while we sat, appreciating the silence.
わらわは何者なのか。この問いに今日まで答えてくれた者はおらぬ。なぜか皆目をそらしはぐらかす。そなたとは長い仲だ。わらわはそなたを無二の友であり、だからどうか教えてほしい。そなたは知っているはずだ。わらわが何者であるかを。
なぜにそのようなことが気になるのか。そなたはベアトリーチェ、この屋敷の主ではないか。それ以上の何を知りたいというのか。
わから
ぬ。なんだ、何が知りたいのか自分でもわからぬというのか。それは不可解な。若き日には出口なき思考の迷路にて遊びたくなることもある。そなたの悩みもそれであろう。
Kinzo laughed as though it was a trivial matter. However, I couldn't help but feel that this favor is nothing but another attempt to force me to stop my further questioning.
やはり、そなたもそれを語ってはくれぬのか。
語ることなど何もない。そなたはベアトリーチェだ。それで十分ではないか。
いや、違う。わらわが知りたいのは名前ではない。わらわが何者なのかだ。わらわは誰で、何で、いつからここにいて、そしていつまでここで日々を過ごせばよいのか。
やはり紅茶を持ってこよう。せっかくの陽気がもったいないとは思わぬか。
これは何の話だ？どうやら、お前の昔話のようだが。
そのようだな。まさかここまで遡るとは。
自分は誰なのか、えらく高尚な悩みをお持ちのようじゃねえか。
無理もない。当時のわらわは、自分が何者なのか、何のために生きているのかを理解。
誰でも思春期になると、自分の生きる意味とは何ぞや、みたいな、哲学的な悩みに一度は囚われるものさ。お前にも、そんな微笑ましい時期があっただけ、という話だろ。
わらわは生まれた時から、その屋敷におった。そして屋敷の中だけで生きた。もちろん庭には出られたが、敷地はとても高い柵で囲まれており、それを出ることはできず、また出てはならないと厳しく言われておった。
She doesn't say anything about there being like a gate or a door.
わらわはな、屋敷とその外へは、自らの意志ではたった一歩。
そりゃ、どういう意味だよ。物心ついた時から、ずっとカゴの鳥だったって言いたいのか？
そういうものだと思っていた。何しろ、気づいた時からそういう生活だったからな。疑問にも思わなかった。
お前、一体、何者なんだ？
それよ、それこそ。わらわは、
どうせ、人間ではなくて魔女でしたって言いや。
いや、違う。まだ違う。いや、かつて、わらわは金蔵によって作られた。人間によって作られた人間だ。
Implying that you're Frankenstein's monster?
いや、肉でできた檻。
なんだよそりゃ。妙な話を言い出しやがって。
どうせそなたは信じぬだろうがな。まずは聞け。わらわは、1000年を経た偉大なる魔女であった。しかしある時、金蔵によって呼び出され、その秘術にて、永遠の虜となるよう縛られたのだ。
そりゃ初耳だぜ。後ろ宮家で知られてる話では、お前はじい様に呼び出されて、悪魔の契約みたいなのを結んで、黄金を授けたってことになってるぜ。
うん。それは正しい。そしてわらわは黄金を授け、契約の終わる時まで姿を消すはずだった。しかし、まあ、モテる女の辛いとこよな。金蔵はこともあろうか、わらわに恋をした。
じい様も金眼が進んでたんだろうよ。ついでに乱視だな。よりによってお前に惚れるとはよ。
まあ、わらわにとっては迷惑この上ない話よ。しかし人間の力とは恐ろしいものでな。あれは恐ろしい力を発揮して、わらわをこの地へ釘付けにしたのだ。わらわが首を縦に振らぬ限り、解放せぬと言ってな。なんとも強引な男よ。
すげえじゃねえかよ。じい様がオカルトかぶれなのは、誰も大魔女ベアトリーチェ様を釘付けにするほどの力があったとはな。へっ、バカバカしい。そんなおかしな話、信じると思うか？
やはり信じぬか。
俺が信じるのは、お前が森の中の秘密屋敷に隠居していたって事実。お前こそが、六軒島の中級人目なんだろう。
いかにも、そなたの想像通り。ここは六軒島の森深く。外界からは見つけることもかなわぬ隠し屋敷。その名も、クワドリア。
Nine Birds Retreat. Hold up. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8. Nine?
そういや、ゲストハウスの正しい名は、トライアンだって聞いたな。なるほど。ネーミングセンスは近いな。そして、お前はそこに隠居していたじい様の愛人。そうだな。
愛人というのは正しくない。金蔵の片思いであったと言うべきだろう。先ほども話したであろう。あれが勝手にわらわに惚れた。そしてわらわに求愛したが、それをわらわは拒んだ。そして、わらわをこの隠し屋敷へ閉じ込めたのだ。いや、屋敷に閉じ込めたというのは正しくないか。この体に閉じ込めた。というべきか。
最後が何を言ってるのかわかんねえぜ。
Haven't we already seen her in a younger version when she breaks the thing and then calls the other witch
ど
to
うせ
fix
そなた
it?
は馬鹿にして聞かぬであろう。何しろ、魔女も魔法も信じぬという。語れど聞く耳を持たぬというならば、それを口にするは愚の骨頂だ。
Presuming all of this is truthful, it would suck to be Beatrice here, where she's just trying to find someone who could maybe, like, empathize with her and kind of understand her at some level. But because Battler doesn't believe in witches, he just refuses to hear the story.
信じるかどうかは、俺が判断するぜ。聞かなきゃ話も進まねえしな。話せよ。お前の昔話を。
うん。金蔵はわらわに求愛を拒まれたが、それ式でへこたれる男ではない。どうあってもわらわの首を縦に振らせたかった。わらわをこの屋敷へ閉じ込め、わらわを口説き落とそうと永遠の時間を費やしたのだ。
強引なやつだな。しつこい男は嫌われるだろ。
求愛に応えるかどうかは別にして。男をそこまで必死にさせるのは、まあ女としてそう不愉快ではない。しかしわらわは決して首を縦には振らなかった。なんとかその戒めから逃れようとしたが、あれの結界は強固で破れなかった。
それで
様々な抵抗を試みた結果、金蔵の結界から逃れるには、肉の体を捨てるほかないという結論に至った。肉体というものは、魔法を語る上でとても制約の多い器なのだ。
肉の体を捨てる？なんだよそれ。幽体離脱みたいなものか？
まあそんなものと考えればいい。しかしわらわは精霊ではない。魔女ではあっても、 もともとは肉の体で生まれ落ちた人間だ。そのわらわにとって、肉体を捨てるということは死を意味するほどではないにしても、それに準ずる覚悟が必要だった。
So her getting rid of her body is maybe the moment that, what's her name? That Rosa's talking about.
それはつまり、自殺することでしか解放されないと決意した。って意味なのか。
自殺ではない。あくまでも、肉の体を捨てるだけのことだ。もちろん、魂だけになるのは心もとない。魂は肉の体を出れば、太陽の強い風に絶えずさらされてしまう。それによって吹き散らされないように自らを維持するのは、できることなら避けたい最後の手段だった。しかし、金蔵の結界から逃れるにはそれしかない。何しろわらわは自由人。金蔵の生が果てるまで、カゴにて飼われるのはごめんというもの。
I couldn't understand the story Beato kept going on about, but throwing away her body of flesh, as anything more than suicide. Grandfather persistently courted her. To escape from that, she chose her own death.
それで自殺したってのか？何を言ってやがる。当のお前は、そこでのんびりガーデンチェアに腰掛けてるじゃねえか。
そうだ。それこそが、金蔵によって与えられた新たな檻だったのだ。
檻？この屋敷のことか？
違う。そこのガーデンチェアにてくつろぐわらわの体のことだ。金蔵は、魂となって抜け出そうとしたわらわを、それでもなお逃すつもりはなかったのだ。いやいや、恐ろしいやつ。
Okay, so if I'm following, she had a human body. She, through whatever witchy powers, separates her soul from her human body. But Kinzo finds a way to pull her back into a body of flesh.
片思いの女が死んでみせれば、100年の恋も冷めるであろうに。だからこそあれも、魔術師の端くれなのか。
さっぱりわからねえ魔女っ子トークで煙に巻くな。つまり、なんだってんだ。
金蔵は、魂となったわらわすらも逃さなかったということだ。人間の思いというやつは恐ろしい。これほどまでの魔力を発揮するとは。死者の魂をつなぎ止めるなど、それを専門に弓道する魔術師でも、おいそれと至れぬ境地よ。わらわはそれを知るからこそ、金蔵の恐るべき魔力に、その時初めて驚愕した。そして金蔵は、わらわの魂を捕まえ、だが、魂を捕らえておく檻は、鉄でも鉛でも作れない。ただ一つを除いて。
なんだよ。魔法の檻だとでも言い出すのかよ。
違う。わらわやそなたのような、この肉の体だ。肉と血でできた檻だけが、魂をこの世につなぎ止める。金蔵はわらわの魂を、わらわと瓜二つに作り上げた肉の檻に。
要約するとこういうことか。じいさまがしつこく求愛するんで、嫌になり自殺したが、うまく死にきれなかったってことだろ。回りくどい言い方しやがってからに。
いいやっち、わらわはホムンクルスの種子に魂を閉じ込められ、試験管の中より生まれ入れたのだ。
はぁ？バカバカしい。そんなのあるわけねえだろ。
生命を生み出す奇跡すらも、金蔵は成し遂げたのだ。わらわの魂を閉じ込める檻にするためだけに、己の恋心だけでこれほどの魔力を見せるとは、つくづく恐ろしいやつよ。
もうさすがにバカバカしくなってきたぜ。好きなだけ言ってろってんだ。俺は何も信じねえぜ。勝手にやってやがれってんだ。
なんだ、その不愉快な態度は。
最初は何か重大なヒントが隠されているだろうと、多少聞けば聞くほどおかしな話になっていく。魔女を否定するゲームのはずなのに、いつの間にか魔女話を鵜呑みにさせられていく気がするぜ。悪いがこれ以上耳を貸す気はねえな。勝手に好きなだけほざいてろよ。耳クソでもほじってるからよ。
Yeah, Beatrice seems saddened by this. When I started showing a cold attitude, Beato acted unusually discouraged. Of course, her expression was still brazen, but I had a feeling that I was able to catch a glimpse of loneliness because I hadn't found the story of her past interesting, in that really easy-to-understand expression of hers. For some reason, that slight reaction made her seem pitiful. So even though I kept my couldn't-care-less attitude, I decided to humor her slightly. Damn it, even though she's an irritating witch, I'm still weak against her because her chromosomes are XX.
信じる気は毛頭ねえけどよ。続けろよ。お茶菓子代わりに聞いてやるぜ。
わらわの身の上話が、茶化扱いとはな。そこまでこき下ろされてまで、のこのこ語ると思うか？
After I made fun of her, Beato reacted a little sensitively. It looked like, even though making fun of people was her specialty, she was horrible at being made fun of by other people. Just then, my cup of black tea suddenly made a sound surprising me.
お嬢様の魂は捕らえられ、新しい生命の檻に吹き込ま、それはつまり、お嬢様が再び人間として生を受けたということです。
Before I realized that the demon butler had appeared and taken my cup and was adding more black tea to
ロ
it.
ノウェ、もうその話はよい。こやつはバカバカしくて危険と言うでな。わらわもバカバカしくて話す気にもならぬ。
新しいクッキーを今、焼かせているところで、それまで、お茶菓子代わりに、お嬢様の昔話がちょうどいいかと思いまして。
I love that even though he is a demon and has like the power to do stuff, the cookies still have to be baked, and like he can't just make them appear like that. Just like he can't just make the tea appear. He has to spend the time brewing and he has to spend the time baking it.
もうわらわの話は良いというのに、揃って不愉快な奴らだ。わらわは席を外すぞ。ロノウェ、給仕を済ませたらとっとと下がるのだぞ。バトラと無駄話などするでないぞ。
かしこまりました。努力いたします。
Beato's confusing female short-temper took hold of her, and she turned her body into gold butterflies, scattered and disappeared. After that, only Ronov and the scent of the black tea were left.
なんだか、俺が怒らせたみたいで気分が悪いぜ。
ご自覚があられるようですので、これ以上申し上げることはございませんよ。
ちょっと待てよ。とどめを刺したのはお前だろうが。
はて、何のことやら。お砂糖とミルクはいかがですかな？
ミルクだけでいいぜ。あと、お茶菓子も欲しいな。
クッキーが焼けるには、まだ時間がかかりますよ。
茶化の代わりがあるって言ったぜ。
かしこまりました。ご清聴をいただけるのでしたら、続きをお話しいたします。
ホムンクルスがなんとかって言ったな。一応は知ってるぜ。あれだろ？錬金術だかで作り出せ。人造人間のことだろ？
はい。お嬢様の魂は、ホムンクルスに閉じ込められ、再び赤子となって生を受け、しかし、赤子でございますから、金蔵様が愛を語ろうとも、それは無駄なことでございます。
まさか、じい様はその赤ん坊をこの隠し屋敷に、同じ年に成長するまで閉じ込めたってのか？
はい。そのまさかでございます。しかし、魂は同じといえど、人間の魂は、その器に強く影響を受けます。お嬢様は、かつての記憶をすべて失われ、ごく普通の人間の少女として成長されました。
それが、そこのガーデンチェアに座ってるベアートだってのか？
はい。その通りでございます。まさに、瓜二つに成長なされました。しかし、魔女としての力は持ち合わせておりません。あくまでも、人間としてのお嬢様なのです。
Yeto, who was sitting in the garden chair, looking up at the sky, asked that same question again. She asked who she was. The meaning of those words was finally starting to click. She couldn't understand why she was living here all locked up. Grandfather had seized Beatrice's soul, shut it up in a body of flesh, and then shut that up in a hidden mansion. However, since she had lived here since the time before she was born, she couldn't even understand who she was, or why she lived shut up there. Wait. Who would take such a stupid story seriously? Why don't I change my interpretation? Essentially, couldn't it be something like this? Grandfather met Beatrice. Then he fell in love with her and courted her, but she didn't nod her head in agreement. And so he got angry and shut her up inside this hidden mansion. Beatrice tried to escape, but no matter what she did, she couldn't succeed. So she finally chose her own death. And then, maybe there was a girl that looked like Beatrice? No, a baby? And grandfather raised this child with care? But maybe grandfather didn't view this child as his daughter. Shut my soul up once more into a cage of flesh. Those words probably meant that he didn't view this kid as her child, but as her reincarnation. Maybe that's what it meant? I mean, that don't make her grandfather look like a good guy. None of this makes him look like a good guy, honestly. But if you interpret it that way, even a story that weird might make a little sense. No. Might be some bullshit Vieto cooked up to confuse me. So if I could accept any of this. In the first place, Quidorian was it? There's no proof whatsoever that a hidden mansion actually existed. Could this be something that she fabricated on the spot?
六軒島の森の中には、クワドリアンという隠し屋敷が実在します。
Why can you use the red?
それが今、話をしていた場所です。
赤!
Ronov used the red to say that Quidorian actually existed. Did that mean the same thing as the red Beato used?
これでも悪魔の端くれでございますので、お嬢様には内緒にしてくださいね。
Beato, who knew I would try to trip her up, had grown extremely cautious when using red. To think that Ronov could also use that red. Of course, it's the red of a crafty man. I don't know how far I can accept it. But anyway, I might be able to get some hint out of it.
このクワドリアンの庭でくつろいでるベアトと、さっきのじい様との会話は真実なのか？
はい、真実です。かつて、実際にこの場所で、お二人はこのような会話をなされました。
So, okay.
助かるぜ。さらに赤で頼む。あいつ、ホムンクルスから生まれたなんて言いやがった。そんな非科学的な魔法的存在、実在するのか？
その問いかけにはお答えできません。理由は、ステイルメイトになるからでございます。
ステイルメイト？なんだそりゃ。
チェスの用語で、千日手のパーペチュアルと同様に、それ以上のゲーム進行が不可能になる宣言です。これは、千日手とは正反対で、指し手がなくなる、ある種の手詰まりの状態を指します。パーペチュアルに同じで、チェスではこれを引き分けにしております。ただし、お嬢様とバトラ様のゲームでは、引き分けがございません。ですので、ステイルメイトになる質問には、赤でお答えすることができ、
よくわからねえこと言って煙に巻いてるが。つまり、ホモンクルスなんて魔法的存在が実在するって、赤で言えないからごまかしてるだけなんだろ？
仮に私が、赤で魔女は実在すると言ったら、バトラ様はどういたし、
それを信じるか信じないかで、俺たちは大喧嘩してるんじゃねえかよ。それを言われちまったら、身も蓋もないぜ。ゲームオーバーだ。
魔女は存在すると、赤で申し上げたなら、しかしバトラ様は、その理由が示されない以上、それを受け入れないでしょう。しかし、赤で語られる以上、反論の余地もなく、この場合、バトラ様は敗北を認められないにもかかわらず、反論の手がなく、手詰まりとなってしまいます。チェックメイトされていないにもかかわらず、次なる指し手が存
So
在しない。
basically, they can't admit to anything magical. Because if they basically admit that anything magical exists, then
バ
we
ト
have
ラ
no
様
room
が
for
次の
argument.
一手を打てない以上、お嬢様に手番が回ってくることはなく、ゲームはそこで永遠に止まってしまう。その結果、お嬢様があなたを屈服させることもできない。これが手詰まりの状態です。それを回避するため、このような形になるご質問には、赤でお答えすることができないのです。
早い話が、身も蓋もない質問は禁止だと、そう言いたいわけだな。まあ、そりゃそうだよな。赤で魔女は実在するって言われちまったら、俺は
ご理解いただけて助かります。他の形の質問でしたら、ご協力できるかと思いますよ。
奴がはぐらかした副賞要求には応えられるか。この島の人数だ。
お嬢様が保留されている副賞要求にも、お嬢様の家具でございますので。
Rana made exaggerating gesture, trying to act like a loyal retainer. This guy is so shameless.
一瞬でも使えるやつと思ったの。諦めて、他の質問を探すか。そうだ。大事なことを確認するのを忘れてた。これは、ベアとの思い出話なんだろ？いつの話なんだ？まさか現在ってことはないだろ。
はい。ここは1967年の世界。19年前の世界でございます。
Let's go through the story one more time. I wonder if it couldn't be something like this. Grandfathered a person with whom he fell in unrequited love called Beatrice. He confined her in this hidden mansion and continually courted her. But she was stubborn and didn't say yes. Eventually she grew pessimistic about being unable to escape from here, and probably committed suicide. And then, her soul was put in a homunculus and... No, if I accept that, it's the same as accepting the witch. I can interpret that part like this. She probably left a daughter behind when she died. Let's talk about the soul being put in a new body probably meant grandfather raised that child believing it to be the reincarnation of Beatrice. In that case, Beato must have existed on this island for less than the last 19 years as the 19th person, and then,
混乱してきたぜ。いずれにせよ、憶測の域を出ない。確実に赤で言えることは、 1967年のロッケン島の隠し屋敷に人間としてのベアトリーチェが存在した。それだけだ。
その通りでござる。1967年のロッケン島の隠し屋敷に人間としてのベアトリーチェ様が存在した。
ああ、助かるぜ。
So he added in there specifically that she existed as a human.
おめでとうございます。これでバトラ様の19人目のコマは、その存在がはっきりしました。バトラ様が熱望された18人以外に罪をなすりつけられる19人目のいかなる罪をもなすりつけることのできる生贄の羊。
But specifically that was in 1967.
それがお嬢様とは実に愉快。
Romanov laughed indiscreetly. Somehow I didn't like his phrasing, so I didn't feel like laughing along with him.
そうだ。ローザおばさんは言った。ベアトリーチェは死んだ？私が殺した？どういう意味なんだ？
それは私の口から語るよりも、実際に顛末をご覧になった方、少々時計を進めましょう。
Romanov pulled a stylish pocket watch from his pocket and made to wind the crown. As soon as he did, I saw gold butterflies gather behind Romanov's back and take the form of a person. Was it Beato? I quickly realized that it was someone else. It was her. The oldest of the 7 stakes, who loved tormenting me more than anyone else. If I don't think myself lucky to see that sexy ass, I won't be able to play along with their torture game.
ロノウェ様、まだこちらにおられましたか。ベアトリーチェ様が至急お呼びです。
はて、至急のどのようなご用や少々、バトラ様とのおしゃべりが過ぎたようですね。それではバトラ様、私めは、これ、どうか引き続き、お嬢様とのゲームをお楽しみください。
へい、せいぜい楽しむぜ。あんたは、ベアトより話が弾むからな。赤も気前よく使ってくれるしよ。ぜひまた、おしゃべりに来いよな。
バトラ様、私めも、こう見えてもお嬢様の家具。お嬢様が望まぬことはできませんよ。私が語った赤は、本来なら、お嬢様が自らの口で語るべきもの。へそを曲げてしまわれたお嬢様に代わって、若き真実を披露したに過ぎません。
やっぱあれ、へそを曲げてたよな。
Simeon Romanov incomprehensibly hitting it off. That 7 stakes chick cocked her head slightly.
ロノウェ様、ベアトリーチェ様をお待たせしております。お急ぎを。
ええ、直ちに参ります。それではバトラ様、後ほど。ようやく仲良くなれてきましたね。やはり、良い友人になれる気がします。
ベアとの陰口仲間ってことならな。
ロノウェ様。
はいはい、それでは、失礼いたします。
Maybe it was because she didn't really like seeing him act friendly with me, or maybe it was because she had really been told to hurry. The 7 stakes babe Bella tried to play at Romanov. He laughed foolishly and disappeared as if running away.
煉獄の七杭が長女のこの私が、この程度の用事で呼びつけられるなんて。ベアトリーチェ様も、この程度なら他の暇そうな妹たちに言いつければいいのに。
何をカリカリしてんだよ、姉ちゃん。腹減ってんなら、クッキーでも食えよ。最後の1枚をくれてやるぜ。
気が利くじゃない。なら、一ついただこうかしら。
I lightly pushed the snack plate with the last remaining cookie on it over to her.
ありがとう。
As though coming as a replacement for the period at the end of a sentence, a sharp sound pierced the table. nails on 3 of her fingers had sharply extended and were stuck a hair's breadth into the gaps between my fingers on the hand I'd used to push the plate. It had happened in an instant, so for a while I didn't even realize that her fingernails had grown. The tips of those sharp nails were like blades with a red manicure. The spaces between the bases of my fingers prickled. Those razor-like blades were sticking sharply into the back of my hand and into the spaces between my fingers. By those 3 blades, my carelessly outstretched right hand was not even permitted to shake. All I could do was allow a single line of cold sweat to drip down.
姉ちゃん、そろそろ爪を切った方がいいぜ。
ルシファーよ。それが誇り高き私の名。ベアトリーチェ様にお仕えする名誉ある家具。煉獄の七杭が長女。他の面汚しな愚昧どもとはわけが違うの。それに見合った敬意を示さないと。
どう後悔するんだか。俺には見当もつかねえぜ。
バカな子ね。そんなに遊んでほしいの？そんなに忘れられないの？私の悔いを思いっきり奥の奥までねじ込んでたっぷりえぐって楽しませてあげるわよ。
くそったれ。いつか押し倒して同じセリフ言ってやるぜ。
あらそう？楽しみにしてるわね。
And with that, I think we'll call it here for today.